What's up everyone, Lance Hedrick here, and today we're taking a look at the Ascaso Steel Duo PID. Now this is a machine that many of you have been asking me to review for quite some time, and to be honest with you, I actually acquired this machine. I bought one about a little over a year ago, right when they made the switch to the steam knob as opposed to what the previous iteration was. But before we get into that, I want to take just a second to talk about boilerless technology. Boilers, not only do they do the obvious of taking more electricity in order to heat up and maintain the temperature, in order to get the whole system heated up, yada, yada, yada. But on top of that, descaling gets much more difficult. You need to, ideally you take it out of the machine and descale it actually in the solution. But the biggest negative to me, there's plenty of science out there that talks about the degradation of water once you heat up and let cool, heat up and let cool, heat up and let cool, heat up and let cool. So why are we using this outdated technology? Boilerless technology has been around 70, 80 years. In fact, I showed some examples in this video where I go to the Malk Espresso Museum out in Milan. It's something that's been worked on for a long time. All these cheap machines you see online, they give this type of technology a bad name because they're using really cheaply made aluminum thermoblocks that don't really have much longevity. But there are lots of different companies doing a lot better things, and Ascaso is one of them that's using a much higher quality thermoblock system. It's actually 2 thermocoils in the Duo, whereas in the Uno, there's just one, of course. The thermocoil is a thermoblock. It's a block of coil that is creating heat. Okay, so it's a thermoblock, it's a thermocoil, you get it. Then you also have in like Breville machines, they're using the Ferro system, which they've coined the thermojet. Now that one is a much more quickly heating, more like a thin membrane type of situation where you're able to get on demand heated water within 3 seconds. You can change temp on the fly depending on the programming. It's a very sophisticated thing that is actually not just using Breville's. I've seen some really weird comments about the thermojet online of people saying that it's less consistent than the thermoblock. That's just not accurate. The company that creates them for Breville is called Ferros, and they also create the one for the Manument, which is that $20,000 lever machine James Hoffman reviewed. They also are creating the heating tech for the Tone commercial espresso machine that I take a look at in this Milan video. There's a lot of new and exciting technology for heating water on the fly that uses a lot less electricity and allows you to use fresh water, and allows you to do things kind of on the fly within a few seconds. This has a boiler and heat exchanger in it. That old boy has a boiler in it. There are boilers all around me. But I absolutely love the push towards this heating on the fly. Don't have to wait around 30 minutes to an hour for a machine to heat up fully. Oh, bliss, how wonderful. Now the story of how Ascaso came to be is pretty unique. As you can imagine, Ascaso is a family name. And the original Ascaso, he started working in coffee back in the 50s when he moved to Barcelona to work for Gaja. But it wouldn't be until 1997 when the family actually began to manufacture their own espresso machines. And recently, there seems to have been a surge in their popularity, as over the last few years, I've seen lots and lots with this really cool technology that seems to be really well thought out and integrated. You need a 20 amp circuit, which in the States is a bit difficult unless you have kind of that weird looking plug with one of the prongs to the side. But in every other country, you don't need the 20 amp. Like in the UK, I think 13 amps works fine because you have 240 volt. But anyway, electricity stuff aside, you can look into it. But for the highest performance in the US, you would need that 20 amp circuit. In order to get steam and brewing at the same time, they have this option here to switch on the steam, and you hear the second vibratory pump going, pumping water through that coil. And then of course it was building up pressure because there's nowhere for it to go, and it releases the steam back here. On a normal boiler machine, you have the vapor concentrated inside of the boiler because it's being consistently heated by the coil. So you don't need a pump. All you need to do is open up a valve and the steam comes out. So it's going to inherently be higher pressure steam from a big boiler machine than it will be out of the small thermoblock machine like this. You will absolutely need a pump to pump cold water in through the coil, which is literally a coil like so, in order to get the water through, flash heated in order to get it to steam and releasing through that steam one. So that's all people mean when they say it's like a dual boiler or a dual heating type of system. You can do both at the same time, which really, unless you drink a lot of milk drinks, is not a big deal. In fact, like I mean, I even with dual boilers and things, I don't really do them both at the same time because I like to watch my espresso come out. But anyway, that is what we have going on here, and that's what puts a little bit more of a price tag on it, is that second thermal coil inside of here. If you have a cup like this that's close to the height of a diner mug, it'll fit under the spouts and on the scale, no problem. It's got a really nice clearance here, especially if you use a bottomless portafilter. The machine actually comes with a spouted portafilter, which, you know, is, people still use these obviously, but I think a lot of the enthusiasts who are shelling out money for this likely are using bottomless. So you can always, you know, shell this and get a bottomless, but I really like the wood they've gone with for the accent on the machine. I think it looks really nice. So it's kind of a bummer that I won't be able to use this for the majority of what I'm doing, but it is a stainless steel portafilter. I read on their website that they're going away from this chrome plated brass type stuff and going straight with stainless steel for a higher quality experience. Now they only include 7 to 14 gram baskets, which I guess makes sense because of their shared history with Italy. They were one of the earliest adopters of espresso back in the 50s, and in fact a lot of the vintage lever machines and different machines you see were actually Italian companies, but they were manufactured in Spain. They also have a really robust vintage just community in general because of how old espresso is in Spain. So seeing 7 gram and 14 gram baskets isn't surprising, but I do wish it was a bit more modernized and had maybe an 18 or 20 gram basket included instead of including 2 pressurized baskets, which I'm sure not many people are getting much use out of. If you've been wondering why I've been looking so buff lately, it's because I've been working out with this tamper here. Well, one side is like 56.5, one side's like 57.5 mils. Very oddly sized. It fits their baskets decently. There's still a little wibble wobble. Wibbles wobble, they don't fall down. Of course, the 56.5 isn't great. But then you take it into something like an IMS, and we got like quite a bit of wobble. Wibbly wobbly, wibbly wobbly. Obviously, the 56, like I don't even know I'm trying that. But yeah, so there you have it. I wish more premium machines were putting premium tampers with their products because it's kind of, I mean, who thought that was a good idea? Let's be honest. Like that is just ugly. Well, I've got a bigger IMS basket, plopping it in here because, you know, we don't mess around with pressurized or with 7 or 14 gram baskets. I don't want them thin little baby pucks. I want thicker, deeper pucks. Give me better stracks. Of course, we see it has a manometer or a pressure gauge right here. This actually shows the back pressure that's being experienced in the group head itself, which is fantastic. Sometimes you see people putting the pump pressure on there. I don't think that's very helpful because it'll say 9 every time, even if nothing, we don't know what's going on in the group head. It's a little silly. So back pressure is what's most helpful when it comes to extraction. In addition to that, they actually have a little flathead screw right here by the group head where you can put a blank in and you can twist that screw in order to change the OPV. Let's say we have it set to like 9 bar. During the case of normal extraction, as that pump is pumping water, it's going to keep pumping because that Olka pump's probably a 15 or 20 bar pump. It has the capability of pumping to higher pressure, but then right above the vibratory pump, there is a valve called the overpressure valve. And what it does is essentially once it hits a certain pressure that we're able to set, it will say, okay, we don't need more water because once we get over this amount of water, it's going to increase the pressure. Because we know the simple mathematical equation, input flow times resistance equals pressure. In order for it to maintain that stable pressure, the resistance is essentially, it's changing a little bit, but it's much more stable than the flow. And so what that OPV is able to do is it's able to shunt water of that flow so that as that resistance is pushing back, boom, we're able to maintain our pressure and get rid of water. And so you can see the water dropping into that water tank. Now you may be asking, oh my goodness, Lance, what if I backflush? Is that going to backflush detergent water into my water reservoir? No. What happens is water comes from the reservoir up through a pipe into the pump immediately, okay? Well, actually, there's a flow meter before it, and that's how they do volumetrics, and it's not very good, so let's just forget that's even there. Why you would put a flow meter before a pump is beyond me, because you have the OPV, which shunts flow, and that's part of the water it's measuring, but anyway, we won't overreact there. But water is going from the tank through the flow meter into the pump, and then to the OPV. And it's from the OPV, it's shunting it. So if you feel the water coming out of that tube you just saw, it's actually cold water, or whatever temperature the water is inside of your water tank. So it's literally just taking a short little trip and coming back home. So you're not wasting that water, which is great. Now you may see water coming to the drip tray when you're done with a shot. That is what is caught inside the system and that the solenoid is ejecting. That is what has been up in the system, and that's where the detergent's going to go. So that's why you have that three-way solenoid. It stops it and pushes it down into the drip tray itself. Now, another thing that is wonderful about this machine that I am very excited about is they do have an actively heated group, which is very important, and that's not unique. A lot of machines now have those, and they should have them. But what they are doing is they take, for the PID controller, they're actually taking temperature from the brew group. They're not taking it from the thermoblock, because that would not be helpful in the slightest. They're taking it from the group head. And so then they're able to change the heating structure of the thermocoil to get what you need at the group using an algorithm. Now you'll see in here kind of a big box in the back that's like its brain. It's similar to what we saw in like the Lilith and like the Bianca and things like that. It's a big brain of electronics. So it can be a little, like as you see in here, there's so many cords going everywhere. It's a bit overwhelming how they shoved everything into this small design. But it gives us the capability of having a bit more control over our temperature, even though it is a thermoblock or a thermocoil technology. It's called an Ascaso steel. That's pretty obvious. Duo, 2 heating elements or 2 thermocoils, and then PID, which means it has that PID controller for the group head and for the steam. So for both thermocoils, you have the capability of controlling the temp. Now, because the temperature is read at the brew group, they are able to have an algorithm in place that talks with the thermocoil so it knows when it to heat up and how intensely, things like that, in order to hit whatever you've set in the PID controller on the menu. One thing that I noticed in my thermal testing is that it wasn't very accurate out of the box. So I had to set a temperature offset that was pretty big, and that's not something I would have been able to do had I not had some sort of testing devices. Now, whenever I'm testing my machines, I like to use 2 different tools. I like to use the kind of standard SCASE device with my Fluke thermometer, and then I like to use the TPD from Passato. Now, the reason I use these 2 different ones is because I think the SCASE is more accurate in the sense that it has something to kind of emulate a coffee puck with the thermoprobe here. The TPD has a big cavity inside, meaning you have to fill with water first, which can kind of throw off some of the temperature. But you can kind of fill it up with really hot water and let that emulate a puck in a way, and it can get you similar readings to the SCASE, but I have to use this as a reference for the start. So you can program your PID by clicking program on the left, and you can go down to 80, you can go up to 100 and, oh my God, we can just go 120. But I have it set at 92, so let's get back to 92. Let that go back to normal, and then we'll open up the extended menu, which is holding both at the same time. Then we go down to the letter U, which is right here. So I'm currently at a 5-degree offset. I'm telling the machine to do 5 degrees higher than 92 in order for me to get 92. Now to show that, I'll put the SCASE in. The SCASE is a little warm, but it's not super hot. So the first one should kind of be maybe a little ignored because it'll probably read a little lower than what it should, because again, the mass is cool. So here we go. This first one, actually it's pretty close already. We're at 90, yeah, but there we go, 92. So it just peaked at 93, but now it's gonna start going down. So there we go, kind of sticking around that 92, going up to like 93-ish. So maybe my offset was a little too big, but you do see an increase in trend because of that slow down flow rate, or because it's not quickening. If we had a quickening flow rate like is realistic with shots, then it would maintain that temperature a bit better. I'd never really done temp testing when the water tank was super low and I wasn't paying attention, and in my first take I was pulling it and it was shooting way over the temperature. It was really confusing until I saw the water level was really low. It is very important with this machine to keep the water level higher, way above the minimum line. Once it gets below that, it will start to shoot temperatures through the roof, likely because it's sucking a little air in with the water, and so you're overheating it inside the thermocoil itself. So it does a good job with the temperature stability, but you do need to have an offset. Like I said, mine's at 5. I know that Cafe Masher had a completely different one with their 2 units. So I wish QC would actually do this on their own. Like with the Argos, they have a QC where they're testing it with the SCASE and doing this offset for you. I wish that was part of Ascaso's QC, which, speaking of QC, QC, that is something I want to talk about really quickly. Now, something I noticed online in different fora were that people were receiving brand new steel duos and they were getting an error message like right out of the box. And funny enough, mine did too. Now, I ordered this anonymously. They just sent me whatever was off the shelf, so there was no extra love taken with mine or anything, so no worries there. Got out of the box, filled it up, turned it on, and I kept getting error EO1. Now, I looked that up, and I knew what it was based off of the symptoms of the machine. There was no water coming out, even though the pump was actuated, meaning the pump was airlocked. Now, airlocking vibratory pumps is a very common phenomenon. It happens if you store your machine for a long time, or if you run out of water and you suck air in because you didn't think to put water back in it. And it literally just airlocks. That piston doesn't have any water to move through, and it just gets kind of, I don't know, stuck in a cycle where it's not really doing its job. Now, I've read a lot of people just end up sending their machine back and getting a new one, or they switch over to another machine. When in reality, this is a very small problem. I'm not sure why it happens so often with the Ascaso specifically, but it's a very, very easy problem to fix with one tool at home. All you need to get, and I had one, it's just a little syringe or a turkey baster or something like that. You take out the water tank like so. You're gonna find which one is the one without water in it, which is very easy. Turn your machine on, turn on the steam. The one that has water moving through it, the steam one, is obviously not the brew group. You're gonna take the brew group pipe, you just pull out these pieces, fill water up in your syringe, shove the syringe in here, then you're gonna turn on the brew group and you're gonna manually prime the pump. Now, there have been other issues I've seen where it is just blatantly problematic, and that is obviously not a great thing. So, as we see, EO1 error, the EO2 error, as well as the offset, temperature offset, these are things that should be fixable with a more tight quality control protocol. So that would be a really nice thing to see improved at Ascaso. So a lot of people ask about the steam power. It's like I said earlier, it's not as good as the steam boiler power. But we flip this on, it's gonna purge out water, and boom, we have our steam. So there we go, we got our steam wand going. Now the steam is a little wet. I mean, as you would expect, let's wipe away some of this. All right, so the steam's a bit wet. It's not as dry as something like, you know, a La Marzocco or something that has a massive steam boiler. But it steams beautifully silky milky, so there's no real concern there. Now the steam one, of course, it has a ball joint, which is really nice, and then it's Cool Touch up top. Now if you get down to about here, it's no longer Cool Touch. Now other things that you can do with this machine, there is a robust menu with different options of changing the pre-infusion, which now you can do 0 to 5 seconds of pre-infusion water, which I measured it, it's the same water debit, and it seems to want to go as high as the pressure gauge can go. So I'm not quite sure what the pre-infusion does unless you use the pause, but you should be able to get a longer bloom than 5 seconds. Give the people what they want. Let them have a little bit longer. It should be absolutely a-okay. So I'm not really understanding the 5-second limits on both, but it's better than nothing. Don't get me wrong. I love to do those pauses. So I currently turned off the pre-infusion for some of the temperature testing, but we're going to go back and turn the pre-infusion back on. So I have it at 5 seconds pre-infusion, and then we'll do a 5-second pause. So what I'm gonna do is I'll turn it on and you'll be able to see the pre-infusion. It's gonna go up to the top pressure in those first 5 seconds. So here we go. Boom. So it's not at a lower pressure, so I'm not quite sure what the point is. Now when it goes to full infusion after the pause, look, it's at the same pressure. So I'm not quite sure what the pre-infusion does if you're not utilizing the pause. It seems like it's just coming in, and to kind of show you about the flow rate is 5 grams per second, regardless of it being with pre-infusion or not. So as you'll see, we'll go. So in 5 seconds, we have right at 25.3 grams. That's 5 grams a second, okay, for 5 seconds. So we're out at 30 from all the drops. So in 10 seconds, let's see where we're at, so we can divide it by 10. Okay, so we're at like 82 grams, so that was 52 grams, so yeah, right at 5 grams a second. So there's no difference in the flow rate, there's no difference in the top pressure. I'm not quite sure what the pre-infusion is doing if you're not using the pause. So, I mean, it just seems like it's part of the extraction itself. But of course, do what you want. If you think it tastes better, I don't know what it could be doing differently, but go for it. I think the pause is a very helpful thing, and that's why I have it as 5 and 5, is that's what I use when I use this machine. I want that puck to get as saturated as possible during that pre-infusion, and then I'll let it pause to kind of, off gas and really saturate, and then we continue with the extraction, similar to what I did on the Linea Mini, the new version that I made a video of recently. I enjoy the feel of these types of knobs, but it's very irksome that they're all at different locations. So the on-off switch, whenever it's on, it's in the down position. Whenever it's off, it's in the up position. The second one, when you click down, it's what you have saved for your double shot. When you go up, it's what you have saved for your single shot, or essentially 1 or 2. So in order to create these profiles, you just hold down, and as long as you're holding down, it's gonna read what the flow meter says, and that's what's gonna be your set volume for the down position. When you hold up and you hold it the whole extraction, that's how many mils it'll save based off what the flow meter says. It never goes up or down, it just clicks up or clicks down momentarily to actuate it. And then this one right here is hot water, so it stays in the up position unless it's on. This one is the steam. So all this does is it actuates the pump to get water actually going through it in order to vaporize. Then, of course, as I said, you have a pretty confusing menu here when you click both buttons. It's a lot of weird abbreviations, like CR is for time, which I assume is similar to like Chronos. But they have just weird choices for the letters, which I think could have probably been easier to discover. Got the coffee in, locked and ready to go. 5-second pre-infusion, 5-second off. Let's see it. So as you'll see immediately, one big issue, a big con of this machine is how much it frickin' vibrates from the vibratory pump. I mean, it goes off when it vibrates. It goes everywhere. So the fact that it has this slanted top and that nice mirror finish on top, it's really pretty, really nice, aesthetically pleasing, nice footprint, all that good stuff. So that's a shot of espresso on the machine. Of course, we can play around with the overpressure valve. And in fact, what you could do if you wanted is have something kind of attached here that as like a knob, and you could play around with pressure profiles. That could be kind of fun, I guess. But in reality, you shouldn't really necessarily use the OPV as a guiding factor in your extraction because it's just gonna keep shunting water off, and it is what it is though. The reason I did a lot of that temperature testing with the valve on my TPD was to see if someone did the dimmer mod, if it would affect the temperature, and it doesn't seem like it will. Now, the dimmer would go right around here on the back left of the machine. That's where you would put that dimmer in so that you can play around with profiles, flow profiling. I did a robust, roughly 1-to-3 ratio on this shot. It is really nice. It's pretty hot because how big of a shot it is, but that's nice. Really balanced, juicy. Not very thick. It's got a very silky body, but it's not very thick, not very heavy. I would say it's like light medium weight as the body, the tactile goes. Again, you could play around with making a kill switch like Tate Mazer shows in his mod video, but I mean, you have a kill switch essentially with the 5-second off of pre-infusion. But what I did want to talk about is, as I showed you, the vibration is pretty insane. So it's ideal if you use the rubber mat on your Acaia scale or whatever scale you have, so that the cup doesn't vibrate away from where it's pulling. And because this is a mirror finish on both the top of the machine as well as the drip tray, they will get loads of mini scratches, and it will look pretty trashy. Essentially, I think they should have gone something with like either powder coated, or they should have done some sort of brushed steel like you see on the Breville lines to hide what those scratches will be eventually causing. Because if you stack your cups up on top, they will clang, they'll kind of move around, and it won't be a good time for anyone. They do have dampeners that the vibratory pump are put into back here, one on top, one on bottom, which is pretty standard, but it seems like there could be something else that could really help with the absorbing of those vibrations, which causes so many issues with your cup placement. And of course, having the top being tilted back is just adding to the cause. And there we have it. Little pour with the milk steamer on here. Does a great job. Makes fluffy, silky, milky, just the way Mama taught me. No complaints there. It does take about 30 seconds, which may not be ideal for a lot of people, but honestly, I still to this day don't really get complaints about steam ones because they all make silky, milky. It just is a matter of time. If 20 extra seconds is that big of a deal to you to spend extra grand for another machine, okay, that's up to you, I guess. But for me, if I'm doing a milky drink, an extra 30 seconds, no big deal to get that silky texture. So let's take a sip of this, get a nice little milk mustache on top of my glorious mustache, and let's wrap this bad boy up. Delicious. In order to take the top off, you just have to unscrew 2 screws in the back, then you lift the back up, you pull like that. And then boom, we have a grounding wire and we have the cables that connect to the heating element right there. Now, yes, this is plugged in. Don't be dumb like me, but it's because I wanted to show you this fun little trick to kind of understand better how the OPV is working. When we start our shot with a blind basket in, what's going to happen is it's going to trickle out water until it reaches the pressure that we're wanting. So we're going to start the shot, it's trickling out, and then it's going to go for the bloom, of course. But what we're going to pay attention to is this tube right here. This is the outlet for the OPV valve. Okay, so the OPV, or that's redundant, the overpressure valve. So look, we're going over the pressure, and so it's releasing it right here back into our water tank. Now that water is cold because it's just what the tank pressure is. Now when we see this second valve, this is to release the steam when you're done making steam. So the pump's going, it's pushing water into the thermocoil for the steam. When we turn it off, where does that steam go that's been created? It has to release somewhere. It can't just stay in the thermocoil. So it releases right here, making kind of a big cloud of smoke behind the machine so that you can see that. Now right here we have our SSR relay. Over here we have our brain of the machine. There's a lot of wires in here, as you can imagine. These are all just typical wires for the switches up front. Nothing really too absurd there. Here's our second solenoid valve. We have one of our thermocoils here. Both of them are right inside of there. So it has a big layer of insulation on the outside right there. Everything else looks pretty good, pretty standard. You have everything inside is copper, brass, stainless steel. It's built really solidly. It's a well-made machine. It's a little intimidating when you look in here because everything's crammed in together so tightly, but once you remove some of the wires, it becomes a bit easier to look at. If you wanted to remove the cup tray warmer, you just remove these two right here while it's unplugged. Move these two and you can just put faux ends on those so they're not just random wires sitting out and about, and then you have that removed. You can peel off the warmer, which is right here. You just peel that off if you want to get rid of it, or you can just leave it there and pull the wires out, and there you go. Of course, we have the OPV sat right here so that the screw is directed, like that's how we're getting the OPV directly. So it's situated here, whereas on the old Ascaso, they were in the back where the pump is. So the pump comes here, water goes through this braided tube, and it's an all stainless path that it is hitting until it gets into your cup. So even on the inside of the thermal block, those are typically aluminum, it's stainless steel lined on the inside where the water's actually touching. So there's no movement of metals, there's no issues there. I have seen in some Spanish forums that there are longevity issues, so I can't speak to that. I've not had any issues on my end, but again, I'm a pretty recent adopter of the newer version, so can't super speak to that. What I can say, and the last thing I'll talk about, is I wanted to take this outer panel off just to kind of get a good look at everything. And one thing I didn't like is this back panel is more than just a panel. It's more than just an exoskeleton. It's also part of the endoskeleton. If you take this full panel off, the machine kind of hunches forward. This is necessary for its structure. There's no other underlying structure that holds it all together. There's like 25 screws in order to get this full panel off, and I'm sure it's fine if you do take it off, but it started to scare me a bit once I saw the thing sag forward, and it was very obvious that this was part of its structure that was necessary as opposed to it being some sort of interstructure. Nice footprint, aesthetically very pleasing, very quick heat up times, thermally stable. You do need to have that offset, so that's a bit frustrating. You could dimmer mod it, and it doesn't seem that it would hurt the potential of the thermal equilibrium. So overall, I think it's a great machine. I think it definitely competes with the Breville dual boiler. I think it definitely competes with Rancilio Silvia X. I think it definitely competes with all the rockets. I personally would take this over any E61 machine that's out there. I'm not a big fan of E61s. I've been apparent about that in the past. Too much energy consumption, consumption, too long to heat up, even with the ones that have heating cartridges in the group bed. I'm to a point where if it's taking more than like a minute or two, I don't really care. I've been waiting for Breville or someone like that to do a bigger machine that has no boilers at all, like a dual boiler that doesn't have boilers, or Anchilio to do something different other than their boilers. It is what it is, I guess, in the current system. I think there are trends moving this way because of the nicer machines that are coming out, as I've mentioned a few times, the Tone and the Manument. But I guess we'll have to see what the future holds. I think it's definitely one of the top contenders in this price range, and it's something you should consider if you're looking. Please don't have upgrade-itis. If you have a working machine, stick with that. Buy better coffee first. Don't think about anything else until it's your machine, whatever you have, is beyond repair. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out my Patreon, where I will eventually be giving this away. I have a lot through competitions. I have a lot of other competitions that are going to be put up soon for some manual espresso makers, grinders, and things like that. Anyway, hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. It really helps. But I hope that you brew something tasty today. And cheers.